Hello and welcome to the Borealis Experience. I'm your host, Aurora, life coach and companion on this beautiful journey called life. And I'm very excited to have a new guest on this show. Derek Lacey is here to share about his experience with insomnia and his journey to become a sleep facilitator. And I know, I hope it's okay to share, we'll cut it out if not, that he wants to host sleep retreats in the future. And that is what caught my eye, caught my attention, because I've never heard of a sleep retreat. I have such a hard time to imagine how that would look like. And recently, I struggle a little bit with my sleep. I'm trying to understand what's going on there and, try to meditate before I sleep or not eat too late or not be on my phone, like all these little things that you read on the internet. But I felt that if we have an interview, if we have Derek share about his perspective when it comes to sleep, we will all gain a deeper understanding of what sleep can be, or a new perspective. It's all valuable. And I'm just so grateful that Derek made the time and has the patience with me to sit here today and to share about his journey. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're so welcome. So you had shared with me in our intro chat that insomnia is not a foreign concept to you, and you even said that it was up to, was it 15 years that you didn't have real sleep?
Yeah, I had a 15-year period where I just probably averaged 2 to 3 sleepless nights a week. But before that began, I had struggled with sleep all of my life. I just never used the term insomnia. It was
Mm.
infrequent enough, but it was pretty normal for me. As a kid, I struggled to fall asleep every single night, and it just was the norm to me at that time. And so it didn't make sense until I went through like the deeper insomnia that resistance to sleep was in my roots.
Okay. Okay. So you had to reach a point where it got so uncomfortable that you started doing something about it. Like
Yeah,
almost.
well, I describe my transformation, my journey into sleep that got me here is one that kind of took place by accident, by mistake. I kind of backed into it because I had gotten to a point where I accepted my insomnia. I had restructured my life to fit my sleep schedule.
Mm.
And I bartended for 16, 17 years, and I took a bartending job because the office job I had was very challenging because I'd fall asleep at 5 or 6 in the morning and then have to wake up to be to work at 8 or 9. And when I was introduced to the possibility of not having to wake up and then making uh, pretty good money working fewer days, I was like, okay, I'll give this a try. And I was pursuing music at the time, so it gave me a little bit more time for that. So I got into a pattern of bartending and not really stressing about having to wake up at a certain time. And
Mm.
I I wasn't motivated in that way to do anything about my sleep. But when it came to a point where I was, of a certain age and stopped pursuing bigger things in my life, my soul was feeling lost, led astray. And I needed to do something with my life, something different. And this is when I got into coaching. And I thought, well, health coaching fits my personality and in a sense, my skill set. I'm come from like a psychology background. I knew that to do something, to pursue a new career, I was probably going to have to go to some sort of school. And I didn't, it wasn't about, I was considering like chiropractic or something like that. But at 40 years old, I was like, okay, this is, um, I'm feeling like a crunch here of like time and space. And so I went into health coaching, and through the training program, I was introduced to two things, but like better habits for eating and routines and things like that. And also this concept of transformation, that you could be this one person with this one way of seeing the world and identity, and how that is tied to beliefs and conditioning. And so when I started implementing some of these habits, like not eating so late at night, getting a little bit more sunshine during the day, and uh, understanding what my energy type is for food, and I started sleeping just a little bit better. And that's when it occurred to me that that could be my transformation right there, is just like this idea of being a normal, maybe I could sleep, that it wasn't something that it was like a diagnosis that I had to deal with for the rest of my life. And so I started applying all of these concepts to sleep. And then, every year since then, it's just I'm obsessed with sleep and how it works, why we do it, how we do it, and what it takes to actually get more of it. And that's the journey I've been on ever since then.
Oh, I love it so much. Especially because most of us, not all of us, but some of us see sleep as an inconvenience, right? You described it beautifully in your blog that we think, yeah, we got to do it, but we don't like it. It holds us back from being efficient and out there. And yeah, that trend is definitely not good. And when I was listening to you, I thought, oh, I want to know. I want to know because you had successfully organized your life around the sleeping issues, the insomnia, and it worked
Mhm.
well for you. You made money and you were probably thriving. You were probably very good at what you were doing as a musician and bartender. Um, how did your soul manage to get your attention? Like, how did that manifest that you had this shift in values? And even though it did work for you, the timing, the job, the money making, what was that nudge that what woke you up? What knocked at your door?
That's a great question. There are a couple of things, but there came a time when I stopped pursuing music. I saw music as far as a career for me goes. I started out as a songwriting, performing member of a band who had a certain type of vision for writing albums and touring and things like that. And then as that be felt like it was out of my reach, I transitioned into production, songwriting, trying to play songs in film and television, doing that for a little bit. And that, my soul was just kind of dried from it. That wasn't how I was meant to do music. So then I got to a point where I was just bartending, and I felt like I was living to pay bills. And
Mm.
and at the time I had a um a, my partner who gave gave me that uncomfortable talk and wanted to know, we were engaged at that time, and she wanted to know what my plan was, which at the time was very triggering to me, but of course it made sense. She's like, what am I getting into here? And I remember being, yeah, so bothered by that, because what was tough for me was for somebody to understand the dilemma that I was experiencing with sleep, and not knowing what to do with my life, not knowing how to channel my passion, or what that passion was at that point, like where to take it from, now that it was not going towards music. And it was always like, I knew I've had corporate jobs before, and it's just like I just knew that was not something for me. That I was, my design is to do something a little bit more unique and creative. And so it was more than just going to get a job. Like that felt like death
Hmm.
to me. And so this is when I started pursuing, as I mentioned, I was looking for education certification programs that I could, maybe use to channel my creativity and passion, and that's how that happened. But yeah, it was that moment, a little bit of a push from her, and then also um, the music not being there anymore, and me just kind of boiling with this trapped uh, energy that wanted to be expressed through a passion of some kind.
Hmm. Wow. That's so powerful. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense that then led you um to approach health maybe from a different angle and to become a coach. Um
Yeah,
and
and sorry to interrupt you, but the thing I left out too was that at the time I was really struggling with my health. Like
yeah.
I was and I was I was a grumpy dude. Like
So
I
when
was,
somebody asks you, okay, hey, are you gonna marry me or what's gonna go, down if we go down this path? You're like, well, I don't even know who I am and I'm not even feeling well. So I don't know what I can offer to somebody else, maybe. Maybe that's what you felt.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I had back troubles, and I was sick all the time, and I was overweight. And I was, yeah, I was not a healthy person. And all of that was revealed through my personality. I wasn't a terrible person or anything like that, but I was not grounded, and
Mhm.
I didn't have the awarenesses and sensibilities that I do now, so yeah, I was just a much different person back then. And it was, I mean, sleep will do that. It'll make you crazy if you don't
Yeah.
get it. Yeah.
Oh, I I can only imagine. Did you ever seek out therapy back then, or did you change your path and learned about yourself by like through becoming a coach?
Yeah, I didn't seek therapy as far as the personal growth aspect with sleep. I experienced through coaching and being coached by other people in the training program.
Yeah.
But for years, I sought help through just about every modality, from acupuncture to massage, and of course, going to doctors and being prescribed every type of pill, and yoga. And I mean, you mentioned, like, I've pretty much tried everything, but
Yeah.
I had not. And that's what happened for me, is that I did not associate anything related to personal growth as being related to sleep. And when I went through the coaching program, I got that experience of like, okay, I'm taking care of my body now, and I'm noticing too, this is giving me access to insights in my personal evolution, and then my personal evolution is giving me insights into how my body works and how I relate to sleep and these decisions in food, and how the subconscious mind is associating all these experiences, right? It really started to all make sense, and I got this really full holistic view of what was going on here, and that's what got me so excited. I'm like, oh gosh, people, like, I know this from my experience of looking for help with sleep, that people really do not understand. And I think because everybody I was seeking help from was like a good sleeper, right? They didn't have trouble with it. So that everything just becomes really linear. Like, well, have you tried this? Are you getting this? Are you doing like, they're just connecting dots,
Yeah.
but they're not.
Assumption.
Yeah, yeah. And nobody, it's not a usual thing for people with an expertise in sleep to have gone through the type of journey that I had gone through. And no disrespect to any of my colleagues, the people that are coaches, it's not a comparison thing, but I have even noticed that some people will, a lot of the other coaches I know, sleep coaches, their journey was shorter and was a little bit more like food based, um, and a little bit of an active mind, things that
Mm.
used breath work to kind of resolve it. But what I've gone through, and what like the the client that is a match for me, what they're going through,
Mm.
it's like you've been beat up and dropped off in the middle of the desert, and you got no compass. You have no, you're just lost, right? You have everything, and it's this whirlwind of emotions, and it's trauma, it's sleep psychology, right? It's just a big giant swirl, and it needs deconstructing, and
Yes.
you don't know where you don't know where to start, and much less how all of these different components, your emotions and your mind and your circadian rhythm, how they communicate and work with each other, right? And so that's why I'm passionate about this, because it's really an untapped part of life, yet it's the most important part of life.
Yeah.
People are getting worse at it, and it can feel like a maze, and like a mystery. And so there's just nothing I'm more passionate about than making more sense of sleep.
Ah, that's so beautiful. And you're gonna help so many people, and it's so heartbreaking and at the same time fascinating to get to know another person who went through tremendous pain and suffering and then was able to transform that into their superpower, right? And again, not to disrespect other coaches and therapists, but if you have not gone through that specific discomfort or suffering and you apply book knowledge to trying to help your client, and you cannot say that you can honestly, authentically relate to their pain, then yeah, it's a very different experience. And it's just so beautiful that you were able to, help yourself and then just don't run away with this into a forest and hide, but now you're gonna help other people and invite other people in to understand that their sleep is so valuable. And I'm so grateful that during my coaching journey, my coach said, do not ever forget to ask the client about their sleep quality. When it comes to mental health, mental wellness, emotional health, like if you don't ask questions about the sleep quality, you're missing out on so much. And even as a physician, as a family doctor, if they don't ask you about how you sleep, if they just ask you, do you not drink alcohol? Do you eat good food and drink enough water? But don't ask you any questions about your sleep, they're missing out on very sensitive information.
Mhm.
There's lots in in your in the way you describe your sleep quality that cannot be pushed aside. And thank God more and more people are waking up to this, and more people are buying equipment. So did I with my ring, and so did my brother with his Whoop bracelet. And I know you absolutely do not like these gadgets. This is our desperate attempt to understand what is going on in our body. Do we have deep sleep? Do we have REM sleep? Do we have, however, all these sleep phases are called? But how would you go about a person coming to you and saying, 3 days out of 7, I cannot sleep well and I struggle and it doesn't have me function in life as I'm used to. What would be your process with a client of yours so that people understand a little bit what a sleep facilitator can help with?
Yeah, great question. For everybody, it is different. When I meet with somebody the first time, what I am trying to get a read on is their relationship to their decisions that they're making, and then where their subconscious mind is in making those decisions. So, you, for instance, if I were meeting with you and you were explaining what you're going through, you mentioned earlier that lately sleep's been a little rough for you, and I want to know why you are using the Aura ring. And I want to know what else you were doing to help you sleep, and maybe stuff that you didn't do before it, when it wasn't a problem. Right. So
Mm,
you may implemented some changes to your life because you're like, oh, well, all of a sudden I'm not sleeping. And then so you go and now you're doing more yoga, or you're eating more of a particular food, or you're taking certain supplements. And that is an important thing to understand, because most people have discovered, and this is such a relief when I can tell somebody like that they're doing too much, that that less is definitely more. And what happens is they start using what I call the a la carte method. And what we want to do is make their approach to sleep more like a beautiful 5-course meal.
mm,
Whereas, imagine going to your favorite restaurant that just has an amazing way of presenting and coursing out every course, and so it's like one builds you up and the other one satisfies the back of the tongue, and then the next one the front of the tongue, and then eventually you get this umami experience. And then you want to take your friend, you want to take your best friend so that they can have this experience of this restaurant. And they're just looking at all the sides, and they're like, well, I want some greens, and then I like, I'm just going to get a side of this meat. Like, can I just a side? Yeah. And they start modifying everything. And this is the a la carte method, where they're like, well, I need more sunlight. I need more exercise. I need more water. I need more red light therapy. I need to meditate more. And then they come up with this list of things that um, are really impossible to fit into a day where you're also like approaching your life with like soulful energy, because the thinking behind everything that you're doing is, I can't sleep. I need to
Mm.
do this or else I won't sleep, right? I'm
Mhm.
doing something wrong. So when the kind of backside for this is, when we work on a sleep routine, I help them get their subconscious mind in a place where they're grounded, their conscious mind and subconscious mind are grounded together. But this is like the insurance policy for them understanding like it's okay to do less, because it's very likely that the things that they're doing, it wasn't a lack of these things that caused their sleep problem to begin with. It was something that was a little bit more emotional, right?
Yeah, exactly. So good. I love that. I love that because life got so complicated. I don't know when it started, maybe in the 2000s or after that. And it's so good when somebody tells you, like, just do less, do more of the important thing, be more present, right? You talk a lot about presence, and I love that so much. And seeing sleep as, the ultimate thing to do in life and not everything else. Uh, that is so precious. So you make people aware and you relax and ground people. Um, Let me think, let me feel into this. When it comes to their emotional life and intimate life, how would you approach that? So let's say that person was super healthy and then they went through a breakup, or they have a relationship that is, slightly turning into something, I don't want to say full on toxic, but not so healthy anymore. And that can affect sleep. Like, do you address um, stuff like that as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where the inner child would come in,
Yeah.
and then also looking at how all these different aspects interplay.
Yes.
But so one way of taking a step back and then looking at somebody who is going through more of an emotional problem, because nothing exists in a vacuum. This emotional problem has connections to all the other aspects. And I like to divide my discovery, my observation through the years has been that there are three types of resistance, right? If you want to sleep and you feel like you've earned the right to sleep, but it's still not happening. There are three levels of resistance, and they occur usually in this particular order. And that is physical resistance, and that could be where there's a food, exercise, sunlight factor, grounding factor. Then there's cognitive resistance. This is where the subconscious mind comes into play. And then there's emotional
Mhm.
resistance, and even energetic resistance, right? Like you may feel like everything's fine emotionally, but yet there's some kind of emotional energy running through you. And it can be very challenging to just want to dive in straight to the emotional
Mhm.
piece, because
Mhm.
now all of these other pieces are somehow affected in a way. So we go through, like, it's a sequential nighttime routine that begins with what I call grounding the subconscious mind. It's a simple practice. We won't necessarily get into it yet, but what's important is, if somebody is going through an emotional piece, it's going to be challenging for them to really relate to their subconscious mind if their inner child is screaming and does not feel safe.
Yeah.
And so, but at the same time, if you just jump straight to the inner child work, and the subconscious mind is thinking that its job is to keep you awake, then that inner child work is not going to play. So it's this dance
Mhm.
between the inner child and the subconscious mind, the inner child is part of the subconscious mind, right? And so they relate to each other. So it's a dance where with the emotional body, you want to give it space and um, reverence and really quality time. And so one of the processes, so if somebody's going through a real emotional time, what they what's best for them usually is to have these like little play dates or just dates with their inner child. And they
Hmm.
can do this throughout the day, but there's nothing that will prepare you for sleep better than not sitting and ruminating with the difficult emotions that you're feeling, but sitting and giving your inner child space to feel the feeling that their child did not get to feel the first time
Yes.
when this particular trigger was first experienced.
Yeah.
So that is the real challenging thing with emotions in sleep, is that the adult feels like they're going through an emotional experience when in fact it's just their inner child that is going through the experience again. And there's this real important thing where, like, you see the way we're looking at each other on this Zoom call where it's a split screen. This is how I like to think of the inner child and the adult, is that we have this ability to, appear as this one person, and then we can separate into two to become the parent for an inner child.
Yeah.
And that is the most important thing, when you can learn how to do that. And then when we say feel the emotion, to feel the actual source of the emotion. And
Mm.
those emotions are usually not things like anger or jealousy or some of the, rage, some of the things that it feels like are keeping us from sleeping. Usually those are just meta emotions. Usually there's something at the base that is tied to something like safety, abandonment,
Mm.
some of the things that a 2-year-old doesn't go through rage and anger necessarily, right? It's there. There's that. Well, on the outside, like that, right? But
Yeah.
it's like they have nothing to base it on. They have no
Yes.
there's a lack of previous triggers.
Yeah.
So yeah, when they can get and then actually feel that, now they're in a place where we can, all right, now let me relate to my subconscious mind. And now it's just a programming thing. Like, hey, subconscious mind, how are you? We're gonna,
Mm.
it's safe to sleep. Yeah, you have permission, just focus on sleep for the next 7 to 9 hours or whatever, right? So it's a dance. It's a real dance with checking in to see where that resistance is, right? What's the story behind that resistance?
Yeah. So powerful. Yeah. I love that you invite that into your sessions. That makes so much sense because, yeah, so many people have not gone through therapy and still carry pain from the past and maybe, successfully drink it away or party it away or work
Mhm.
it away, but it will catch up at some point. And then when you have a coach who can gently, elegantly make you aware of that part of you, you can heal and improve not only your sleep but your whole life, the way you relate to yourself and the people around you, the way you see the world. Once your inner child feels more comforted and seen,
Mhm.
um, I speak from experience. The world is just a better place, and not because the world changed, but because I managed to heal something inside of me that was screaming for attention.
Yeah.
Good, so good. Um, I think my last question would be, when it comes to sleep retreats,
Mhm.
and maybe it is still in the dream stage, maybe you have a very clear idea of how it's going to go about. But just for people who have no idea, they just know that they want to improve their sleep and are a little bit or a lot of it curious about what a sleep retreat would look like. Can you invite us in? Um, I'm just thinking, oh, maybe you don't want to share because you you want to manifest it and do it first and then share later. I can come
Um,
up with another question.
I'm happy to I'm happy to share because what's interesting for me is that when I first had the vision for the sleep retreat about 5 years ago, and then from there, I had to go about finding land within my budget and dreaming out a concept. We'll just say within my budget, but we're no real clue of what was realistic as far as that goes. But when it was really simple. I'm like, I want to, I want a space that is raw and it takes people back to the basics, and we, get our bare feet on the ground and eat really good, uh, grown organic food, and we do all these. And I was thinking more in terms of like the a la carte menu. Like we'll meditate and they'll get massage, we'll do yoga, and we'll sing and dance and do all these things, and all these things still apply. But as I have continued to go through my process, the facilitation process, and seeing, like, understanding more about how all these other dynamics, emotions in the mind play with sleep. Really, it's about combining all of the luxuries of being off grid and how that helps sleep with really just providing people with space, right?
Hmm.
I want somebody to come here, and it's that feeling. I remember as a little kid when I was struggling with sleep. I grew up, my house uh, was the target of a lot of random violence, right? Like we had a few break-ins, a lot of attempted break-ins. They shot bullets at the house a few times. I was constantly, this is one of the things that, like, I struggled with. And there was one moment where, one period of time where, uh, my parents hired a security guard to patrol the house, just to walk around the house, because they may have gotten some threats because they fired an employee or something like that. But I just remember how safe I felt, and I do remember sleeping well when I knew that there was somebody kind of guarding the
Yeah.
outside space. And so with sleep, that, at the core of sleep in the subconscious mind is safety. And the subconscious mind, you know, doesn't doesn't know the difference between, not feeling safe because you're on a separate path from your soul, and you're not fulfilling your mission, or if there's literal danger. If like the door's not locked, right? You forgot to lock the door. Like, um, safety is at the core of sleep.
Yeah.
And to provide somebody with a space and say, hey, I see you, and I see everything that you're like, you can put your guard down and sit with your inner child, right? And so I'm not only, it's not in a safety sense, but it's like I'm going to provide you with a space to connect with yourself, provide you with some tools, and and put you in the best circumstance to surrender more deeply than you ever have. And that's the space that I'm creating, is to bring it all together, where at the end of the night they can sit in front of a fire and really just experience full surrender.
Oh, I love it so much because it sounds holistic and simple, doable at the same time. So, so powerful, so beautiful. And people crave safety more than ever, I think, because of all the information, all the news that most people still consume. We feel like powerless and scared, and if you can provide a space where people can just relax, that away and know that they can just be themselves for a moment, um, and go within, and that's just so cool. That's so beautiful.
The
Um,
last thing I'll say too about that is that I just think this is important for people to hear, that I've noticed when guiding people through meditations and visualizations, how much simpler it is for them to melt into their body because I am providing that space for them.
yeah,
So people have a difficult time providing themselves space.
yeah,
And so it's so much, if you haven't even had space provided by somebody else, right? Then providing yourself that space is even more confusing. So providing somebody with space introduces them. It's sort of like training wheels on a bicycle. It introduces them to like, oh, okay, this is the sensation, right? I can really trust that I'm gonna move forward with this. And so to provide somebody that space, and now they can go and feel safe enough to provide themselves with that space. That's all I wanted to say.
yeah. That makes so much sense because I think so many people, even with meditation, they start and then they get so frustrated and say, "That's not for me. It doesn't work. It's, I'm too broken." And all it would have taken is one person to guide them through a mini, meditation for their nervous system to feel this is how you can feel.
Mhm.
This is your normal, but this is also how you can feel. And it's the mind, the subconscious, the soul doesn't forget. Once you have experienced a retreat like you want to offer here in the future, that's something you take into your life, into like until you die, I want to say, because
Yeah.
it's so, so powerful.
Yes.
Um, well, thank you so much for sharing all this. I have a way better understanding now how a coaching with you would look like and how a sleep retreat um would feel. Where can people learn more about you? Do you have a website or do you use social media where people can
Mhm.
just see for themselves?
Yeah, yeah. The website is theartoffallingasleep.com.
Yes.
And that's my handle on Instagram as well, The Art of Falling Asleep. And then on Facebook, Derek Lacey.
Yeah.
And there's a page, a business page for The Art of Falling Asleep, but that one's a little bit more dormant. But yeah, that's the best way. That's the best way to find me. And I have a podcast too with some episodes that they're designed for like the sleeper to listen to them. They're more abstract
Ah,
and and speak of deeper concepts. But my goal there is to speak to somebody's subconscious mind and provide them with that space. So that I always suggest people start with that because they get a deeper understanding of this approach to sleep.
yeah.
And but it's simple. It's a passive listening
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Those would be the best ways. I think, if somebody's struggling with sleep, start there.
That's awesome. I'm going to put this in the show notes for sure for people to learn more about your precious work. And yeah, thank you so, so much for bumping into my life and for being open to share with our audience here. It was so nice to spend time with you and to learn from you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to Derek for coming on the show, and I hope you got a lot of value out of this episode and learned a little bit more about yourself. I think we will do a second episode on this topic where you will learn on how to apply the tools that Derek is sharing. And I'm very excited for that. It might come out in the next couple weeks, so stay tuned. And if you have any questions, any requests, when it comes to topics you want us to talk about or me to talk about, never hold back. And yeah, you can find me on auroraagatecoaching.com, or you can direct message me on WhatsApp. You'll find my contact on my website there. If there's anything I can help you with, serve you with, you can come out for a coaching journey. You can learn to appreciate yoga and all its benefits to health. And my bestseller right now is the intimacy retreats for couples. So yeah, check that out if that resonates with you. Take care, and I'll be out there very soon again. Bye-bye.